Hey everyone, I got a really exciting show for you today. I teased it this morning in our daily financial news. This is really recession proof investing, Section 8, and we are welcoming back Todd Baldwin to the show. How you doing, Todd?
Hey, I am doing great, Michael. Thank you so much for having me on. I must congratulate you on 10,000 subscribers. That is awesome.
Thank you very much. Yeah, it's a big deal. I need to celebrate it a little bit. I need to celebrate moments like that. So thank you.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, I've been a big fan of your content, and I know we talked months ago now. I don't even remember how long ago. And yeah, I'm happy to be back, and I know you're the man when it comes to real estate and Section 8, so I thought I'd ask you some questions about it.
Yeah, I look forward to it. Again, Section 8's a big part of my, portfolio. Just to kind of set this up, right, Todd, you reached out, said, "Hey, Michael, do you know anything about Section 8?" I said, "Sure do. About 40% of my portfolio is Section 8. I've had hundreds of Section 8 tenants. I've had Section 8 tenants for at about 16 or 17 years. So I've seen it all. So I figured, you know what? You ask great questions. Instead of answering it via text or a phone call, let's record it so others can benefit. So I'm going to turn it over to you, and you can take over.
Awesome. Well, thank you again for having me on. And I think it's brilliant to do it this way because I'm sure I'm not the only person who's a real estate investor who has questions about Section 8. But to give a little bit of background, you're in a very liberal part of the country, and so am I. I'm in Seattle, you're in California. And that could be good for certain things. But what it also means is basically the government or the governor of your state has essentially told you, hey, people can choose not to pay you rent, and too bad you can't evict them. And that's going on in a few other places. And so basically I'm like, well, what's what's a rental opportunity that I could have that's relatively guaranteed? And I came across either military housing or Section 8 because the rent is paid for them, usually on, well, I'm assuming hopefully on time and in full. But I guess that would be one of my questions. But before I get into that, I do want to ask, what has been your experience with the quality of tenants for Section 8? Because I know there's some negative stereotypes about folks who are, let's say, super low income, and the fact that they might be doing some riffraff in your apartment building.
Yeah. So one of the things that I coach and tell Section 8 tenants, and I would tell you the same thing, just because they're Section 8 doesn't mean you have to accept them. Sometimes I talk with investors that they think all Section 8s are the same, and that's just not true. Just like all cash tenants are not the same. I have the same tenant criteria, tenant selection, regardless if they're a Section 8 tenant or a cash tenant. So I do not change my screening criteria. And that is what allows me to have, on average, decent performance in all of my tenants, whether they Section 8 or cash. That said, I've had kind of five horror stories over the last 20 years. But in fairness, three of them were cash tenants, including the one I wrote about in my book, the first tenant I ever
Hmm.
had. But I've had two Section 8 tenants that started great, but life choices got a hold of them. And over time, they became a problem that had to go. So again, what I would say is, yes, there are stereotypes out there. I would tell you most of the people preaching them don't have Section 8 tenants. I grew up extremely poor and could have qualified for Section 8 certainly at different points of my life or my family's life, my when I was a child. So I kind of get it, and I always wanted to give back. So I said yes to Section 8 day one. But let's be
Hmm.
clear, one of the things that we're going to get into is, recession proof investing, automatic payments. And yes, we're both in liberal states. But what I would coach you on initially is, if you're going to be in Section 8, you need to have a longer vision, right? Um, this is a pandemic. This is a health crisis. Yes, our governors are overreaching, breaking federal and state constitutions with their decisions, which is, I can't believe nobody's suing them. But that said, it's happening. But this too shall pass. If you're going to get into Section 8, yes, the money shows up. It shows up usually before the first, but there are some extra costs that or expenses that I want you to know about. Um, but I guess the first thing I would tell you is, don't believe the stories. And most importantly, don't change your tenant criteria just because the money comes from the federal government. That's the big takeaway.
Got it. Hey, that's a really, I appreciate that. And yeah, for anyone out there who may be like just tuning in or doesn't even really know what Section 8 is. And I'll let you explain it because you have it. But essentially, from my understanding, is there are certain people that maybe don't have the income to qualify for an apartment or a house. So they have a voucher from the government of how much their government's going to pay them for rent. Is that essentially what it is? Or could you clarify that
Yeah,
further?
yeah, essentially. So first off, it's a program that was created, I believe, in the Depression, right? So it has a long history. It is also, in fairness, given that we're talking about this in 2020, likely to be something that is expanded if Biden wins the election. I could see the program getting all kinds of new money. But essentially, it is for people that live or have income below the median for that area. One thing people realize that a Section 8 limit in your state versus mine, very different. But even if you stay in my
Hmm.
state, a Section 8 limit in San Francisco is very different than a Section 8 limit in Fresno, right? So they scale based on region, based on income. The other thing that is pointed out is I have had plenty of tenants where Section 8 picks up 100% of the rent. I've had many tenants that the tenant is responsible for $1 of the rent. And then I've had other Section 8 tenants where 50% is paid by them and 50% by the program. There is a whole math formula about what is the tenant's 30%. We don't need to get into that. But yes, it does range all the way from 0 to about half is the most I've seen. It can go higher, but I haven't seen that. And then the other thing is Section 8 has limits, typically by bedrooms and baths. For example, in my market, I don't remember exactly, but assume a 1 bedroom, 1 bath apartment caps out at like 775. So what does that mean? Well, that means if I have a 1 bedroom, 1 bath in the nicest part of town and my rent is $1,000, you automatically disqualify Section 8 without even saying it, because there is not a Section 8 tenant with a 1 bedroom voucher that can afford $1,000, right? So there are limits, and that is sometimes what people call, do I do Section 8 housing or not, right? If you're in Boardwalk and Park Place, to use Monopoly examples, you could say you accept Section 8, but they'll never go there because your asking rent is 3, 4, 5, 8, 10 times what Section 8 will pay for that configuration.
Got it. Understood. Okay, that is super valuable. I'm already gaining so much from this, and we're only a few minutes in, so this is awesome. Okay, so my next question is basically you. Let's say you want an apartment building or a house, and you want it to be Section 8. Does that building need to get approved for Section 8? Like, does the city come in and like say, check the box? Okay, yeah, this is Section 8 approved, or how does that process work?
So what happens is basically you advertise that you accept Section 8, right? There's actually a website where Section 8 recipients can go and see that Section 8 housing, their voucher will be accepted, because as a landlord, you can choose to accept or not. So there's
Hmm.
advertising done. The city does not come out and pre-inspect. It allows the tenant to say, hey, I would like to rent 1, 2, 3, 4 Park Avenue, just to use that. And what will happen is that voucher will be turned in to an application will be filled out with the landlord. The voucher will be filled out and turned into Section 8. Section 8 will then come inspect the unit. And what they are typically looking for is health and safety. It has to be to some minimum. That is what prevents Section 8 tenants from being mistreated and shoved into slumlord properties. And they are rightly so, in my opinion, picky, right? You have a unit where the carpet is peeled up on the edge, they will flag that, right? They are, and I
Mm.
again say, rightly so, picky. Again, the government is paying for this unit. They want to make sure that the person in the unit has a unit that is safe and is of good quality. So again, it will be inspected, but it's not pre-inspected. It is inspected after a tenant with a voucher says that they want that unit. And more importantly, this is a big deal. They will inspect that unit yearly. And that should be a topic we talk about as well, because I see that as a good thing and other landlords hate it.
Interesting. So basically, you could have a Section 8 tenant who's with you for, let's say, 5 years or whatever, and they would still get an inspection every single year, not just when it's turned over, but even with that existing tenant.
Absolutely. And again,
Interesting.
I as a landlord love that. People who self-manage hate it. Now, why is
Hmm.
that? Got to remember, I invest in a market 2.5 hours away. I pay a property manager, tens of thousands of dollars, if not 100 grand a year combined. I expect them to do their freaking job. So if I have
Hmm.
40 Section 8 tenants, I get 40 Section 8 inspections, which, oh, by the way, I pay for. It's $50 an
Hmm.
inspection. But then I get the report. And what does the report do for me? The report tells me if my property manager is doing their job. If it's just little knickknacky things, fine, so be it. But boy, you better believe if a Section 8 finds a big problem, my property manager is going to hear it from me. So, as a
Hmm.
landlord who invests out of area or out of state, I love Section 8 for the inspections. My property manager has many people who live in Fresno that almost do self management. They hate Section 8 because of these inspections and the little knickknacky things, right? If you are a self manager and you do all your own stuff, you hopefully, knock on wood, keep your stuff clean and safe. But boy, you're
Hmm.
going to get really annoyed when they find that little edge carpet peeled up or a cracked tile in the bathroom. Me,
Totally.
I like the inspections, but I get why some
Hmm.
people don't.
Right. Well, as you pointed out, you're paying a property manager, so it's up to him to do that anyway. So you get a report saying if it's done or not. And that's actually, I mean, I don't have any Section 8, but with the properties that I have a housekeeper go on a regular basis. And so I get a report from her, like, if there's a tenant that is hoarding garbage in their closet or whatever, I can be like, yo,
Yo,
what are
gotta
you
go.
doing? Exactly. Okay, awesome. Well, let's dive into the next question here. Okay. So you actually answered a little bit about this before, but I was going to ask, how do you find Section 8 tenants? But it sounds like there's a specific Section 8 website where you list your property. Is that correct?
Yeah, so you can do it two ways. First and foremost, the best way to do it is on the Section 8 site. There is a site that the Section 8 has, at least it does in California. I assume it's national, where Section 8 tenants who have vouchers can go and find listings. You can also advertise, but there's only, I don't know, I've been doing this 20 years. You don't have to look very hard for Section 8 tenants.
Hmm.
There are, the reality is, at least in my market, there is not enough affordable housing for Section 8 tenants. So they are almost fighting for quality units. Um, so yeah, once it's approved on the site, we typically have at least one, if not multiple applicants within 24 or 48 hours. It's that fast.
Got it. No, I hear that. And I think, Michael, you and I have a similar story where we're both raised, from pretty poor backgrounds. And even before the pandemic, I thought about going into Section 8 to basically get safe, affordable, quality housing for people who don't have access to safe housing,
Mhm.
and a lot of those people are Section 8. And with the pandemic, I saw it as an opportunity just for investing, like recession proof, as you said. And one of the main financial reasons that I'm looking at this is, although our local governments said, you know, you can't charge late fees, and if someone's not paying, you can't evict them. They had the power to do that, but they didn't cancel property taxes.
No, they
So,
didn't. No.
right, as the landlord or the property owner, you are expected to continue to pay the mortgage, the taxes, the insurance, all the stuff, but you could risk losing your income. And I know that in this pandemic, many businesses were affected, like restaurants were shut down. But what didn't happen to restaurants is people didn't come in, order food. The government said they don't have to pay for that food and you still have to serve them and keep all your operating expenses. So I do feel very blessed. I think you and I both, knock on wood, we're doing fine. We're still making money, all is well. But this is it's just kind of scary that the government has so much power and can tell you what you can and cannot do within your business.
Yeah, it was very eye-opening. Again, it's really odd, right? You can go back and look at the US Constitution. It has a clause in there. I wish I could remember what it was, but one of the amendments basically says the government cannot interject into signed contracts between two willing parties. They can't do
Hmm.
it. It's in the Constitution. I
Wow.
haven't checked Washington, but I know it's in the California Constitution as well. So our governor, Gavin Newsom, went ahead and violated the federal or the US Constitution and the state constitution with his declarations. And I think it's criminal, but what I think doesn't matter. It's been going on now almost 8 months. And there are many mom and pop landlords that will or have gone bust because
Hmm.
you're right. I mean, I had to send out $40,000 in property taxes
Yeah.
in the middle of this. He didn't delay property taxes. Believe me, he wanted his money, even though I can't get my money.
Hmm.
He is he's a special individual in my book.
Yeah, well, and we're seeing that here too, and I won't make this video like a political one. I don't even
Mhm.
really know if you like doing that on YouTube or not, but
Not usually.
yeah,
Yeah. In
well,
fact, Gavin Newsom is the only one I would go after because he has pissed me off personally.
that's hilarious. Yeah, well, you have a direct impact from him, but in my state, and I think your too is actually, but we marijuana is legal in our state,
Yes.
and yeah, okay. So I just thought it was interesting that when they decided to start shutting down, beauty salons, restaurants, stuff like that, they did not shut down marijuana shops or liquor stores because marijuana and liquor is so heavily taxed. So the government wants their money, baby. They're gonna get it.
Yeah, it is really sad. I've been doing a lot of talk about the K-shaped recovery.
Mhm.
Again, the K is everybody went down together in February and March. Now what we're seeing is if you are an owner of assets, the Fed and the Treasury have come in and saved you. Stock market near all-time highs, real estate prices up. But boy, if you sold hours, if your industry was non-essential, you are feeling pain like never before. And
Mhm.
because the stimulus talks aren't going to go anywhere before the election, there's a whole swath. And let's be very clear. Why is this so important to me? My family, when I close my eyes and I remember some of the toughest moments of my life, we were in the bottom of the K. You
Mhm.
have no idea what it is like to open a fridge and see no food.
Mhm.
You have no idea what it's to go into the pantry and go, what can I have to eat today? There's a baked potato or a baked potato, right? Um, it is, I, I can still feel that. And I know there are more families in that today than there should be. We are seeing record numbers of people in poverty. And it's all because local governments made choices to shut entire industries down.
Mhm.
And that's not okay.
Yeah, it's definitely a crazy time we live in, and I completely agree with you. I was talking to my wife about it, and just we're so blessed, and again, I grew up poor. Like I didn't inherit any money. I didn't get this because, I mean, I was raised by a single mother, and my mom at one point was on welfare. I mean, that this is real to me. Um, but the fact that, I didn't count it up or anything, but I was trying to think about how much money I actually made during quarantine. I think it's over $350,000 that I made during quarantine when people had their businesses shut down. And I'm just so like I am so far removed from a lot of the dirt and just the horror that is this pandemic, and I want to do my part to help and to give back because I feel that the government has failed the people, especially they failed the working class. Let's put it there. They failed the poor and the working class. That's what the government has done. But okay, so moving on, more Section 8. Do Section 8 tenants, do they cover all their own utilities, or does that have to be part of their voucher, or how does that work?
So you can, so typically they cover it. Typically
Got
that
it.
there's they do a cost, they call it their 30% variables. And typically I cannot think of any Section 8 tenants I have. And again, I've had hundreds that I was responsible for utilities.
Got it.
Yeah, none that I can think of.
Okay, good to know. And then I think because my operation is so much smaller than yours, I haven't had to do this yet. But when you have, let's say you have, a building or whatever that is 80% Section 8,
Mhm.
um, do you have to have a specific number of those units retrofitted for like wheelchairs or like
Hmm.
being accessible to handicaps? I've never had to do that before, and I was
No,
curious.
I have several buildings. I have one building that's entirely Section 8. Now, I didn't create it or buy it as a Section 8 building. It's just I've had it for 10 years, and over time they've invited their friends and it's become a Section 8 building. So no, I have not had to do any specific building updates. I have had over time to do unit updates. Like I had a Section 8 house one time where the lady had been there a decade, I think. And then ultimately the last couple of years, she was in a wheelchair. Um, Now, let's be clear. I didn't have to do that. I It was basically do this or she has to go to another location. But of course, when in doubt, I always do the right thing. So we spent almost 5 grand, I think, creating a wheelchair ramp that was good for her. And of course, life did what life did, and she was gone a couple of years. But then we removed the ramp because the next tenant didn't want this almost eyesore sticking out in the lawn. But typically, it'll be your choice because you can always say no, right? There's an
Mhm.
apartment I have that the units are 500 square feet each, and the hallways. This was built years ago. The hallways are too small for wheelchairs, so I can't accept anybody on a wheelchair there. Yeah, so there are choices to be made, but I have never been mandated, thou shalt do this because of that, because I'm until otherwise, I am the owner and can make the choice to do it or not do it.
Right, absolutely. Okay. So I know that I was actually looking at a building in a working class suburb of Seattle, and it happened to be in an opportunity zone,
Hmm.
which for anyone listening that may not know, that's essentially an area where if you comply with certain things, like if they want it to be, for Section 8 or low income housing, they will give you some tax abatements. So in this building that I'm looking at, property taxes would be waived for the first 12 years. The taxes on a building like this would be around $30,000 per year. So our savings, if we bought it, would be $360,000. Not bad. But my question is, if you do Section 8 that's not in an opportunity zone, are there any other benefits or tax credits that can be had because it's Section 8, or is it's just regular real estate tax
Yeah,
law?
I've never done a deal because of opportunity zone, so I've never gotten any of those. I haven't used those in my calculation. No, I mean, what you get when you get a Section 8 tenant is it's the beauty is once you get the program, the program's the program,
Mhm.
right? Money shows up, yearly inspections right around the anniversary date. You do get, the other thing that people don't realize is you do get rent increases. Section 8 generally goes up every year. There was a 2 or 3 year period during the last crash where it was flat.
Mhm.
The 20 years I've been doing it, rent's never gone down. That's another thing that people don't realize. Rent's never gone down. Another thing to realize is sometimes Section 8 tenants actually get out of the program. People don't realize that. Sometimes maybe they had kids young, they go to night school or whatever they do, then they become a nurse and they suddenly make enough income. So we've had some tenants graduate out of Section 8, which is totally an awesome feeling. That is
Mhm.
pretty cool to see. We've had to evict. There are sometimes Section 8 tenants that again do that go the wrong way. And we've had to, I remember having to evict somebody that their portion was $1,
Wow.
right? Their portion was $1, but they were a problem for the building and were causing others to get close to not wanting to stay. So we had to evict them, which is really rough, right? I had 99 point some odd percent of the rent collected automatically, but I had to spend over $1,000 getting rid of them because that's what an eviction attorney cost me. And then I had to turn the unit. So it can happen.
I mean, I can't imagine if my rental liability is $1 a month. I think I would be on my best behavior to not ruin that.
Yeah, most people would, but sometimes so again, all these stereotypes come from somewhere, right? The
Hmm.
stereotype of somebody on Section 8 is they're just sitting around on a couch eating bonbons and, doing drugs or whatever it is. That's not the case. Most of my Section 8 tenants are wonderful, hardworking individuals where life got in the way.
Hmm.
But there are some that either start out or become that stereotype and they think they're above the law. And sometimes you as a landlord have to show them that they're not.
Right. And you touched on this a little bit, but when evicting a Section 8 tenant, is that like the normal eviction process, or because they're on a government voucher, it's like, hey, you messed up, you're out. You were on this program and now you don't qualify. See you later.
Well, there's two things that happen. An eviction process, at least in the state of California, is the process, is the process. It doesn't matter. But the tenant has huge downside. If they have an eviction on their record, they cannot qualify for this. They will get kicked out of the program.
Wow.
So they have lost that flexibility.
So this individual who is paying $1 a month to live in a safe, secure, nice place lost that program entirely because of behavior problems that were completely his choice.
Correct.
That is insane. That's crazy.
You would think. And again, if you've seen any of the units I have, and people can go look on my playlist under walkthroughs, I have nice stuff. So yeah, they left that paying $12 a year for rent, $12 a year. Crazy.
Wow. Wow. Okay. Now, something I actually have this question written down. We talked a little about it briefly earlier, and I was just curious about it because
Sure.
when I was looking into Section 8, it said that participants pay 30% of their income, but that's not exactly true, is it? It's like the 30% is like what they could pay, but that could be a dollar, like the man we were just speaking about.
Mhm. Yeah, the whole 30% calculation is where it starts, but then they back out and do all other adjustments. Basically, the Section 8 program is meant, they try to help as many people as they can. Hence, they try to get people to kick in what they can afford without putting undue stress on them. So they count everything, i.e., the utilities that we talked about earlier, right? Utilities can be backed out of that.
Hmm.
Other living costs, like they have, like if they have one kid versus four kids, they give them more money for food, right? There's just all these other calculations that are involved. But yeah, they're really trying to put a Section 8 tenant in there. And when they get their amount, the program, in my opinion, wants to make sure that they feel they can pay that safely and without issues.
Got it. Okay. And then, so how does the program actually pay you? Is it all like direct deposit? And you mentioned it's sometimes before the first of the month, but I'm just curious about how that works.
Yeah, I get one lump sum, usually on the 30th, sometimes on the first, but usually on the 30th. It all comes in. So we get, I don't know, pick a number, 42,000 bucks on the 30th. That amount comes in, and then the details are all the tenant, unit number, and amount. Just one big wire, or yeah, wire, I guess, or
Got
electronic
it.
transfer.
So they don't have to like separate it for like different bank accounts or different buildings. It's just like one. Okay.
Yeah, the
Good to
details
know.
have it. So you can, because my property manager then takes it and then credits each individual account.
Got it. And then I guess you touched on this briefly too. You've been very thorough, so awesome. Awesome job here answering questions before I even asked them. But Section 8 rental income, is that in your experience, is that below market? Like could you, if you rented it out the regular way, more traditional way, could you get more income from it? Or I guess the risk is it's not guaranteed.
Well, here's the deal. So that is a wonderful question that is kind of a nuanced answer. Section 8 is both the ceiling and the floor based on where you are in the city.
Mm,
That's the wrinkle, right? Some parts of town, maybe older part of town, um, Section 8 could be the ceiling, right? That's as much as you can get
mm,
because cash tenants won't go there. Think about that. There are parts of town that are rather Section 8 heavy because cash tenants won't go there. That should tell you
right.
something, right? So Section 8 is the ceiling. Then there are nicer parts of town where Section 8 is the floor. It's like the worst case, I know I can get X. And that is whatever the math is for a 3-bedroom, 2-bath, whatever in your area. So Section 8 both acts as the ceiling and the floor, depending on where you are in town.
Wow. Got it. That's interesting. Yeah, I think that's what I'm looking at now. So I just looked at a unit down in it's a rougher area. It's literally right next door to a bar. so so that can be rough. But that unit that I was looking at would go for I believe $2,400 a month. And I think that other units in that same area that are the same size would go for around 17 or 1800. But $2,400 a month is the Section 8 price.
Yeah, so
So
let's talk about that. Okay, let's watch that. One of the things, so you asked 2,400.
mhm,
Tenant comes out, says I want it for 2,400.
mhm,
Voucher gets submitted to Section 8. Section 8 comes and inspects your building. They're not only checking for health and safety, I missed this earlier, they will validate local rents. So it
mm,
is possible that the tenant says they want to pay 2,400, but Section 8 can come out, audit the house and say, you know what? The most we'll pay is 2,150 or 2,275, or sometimes it's like 2,214, it's like these odd numbers.
mhm.
So I have had Section 8 lower the rent maybe 5 or 10% of the time. So it can happen. It never goes up. Never seen it
Right.
go up, but they can lower it. And then then again, you have a choice. You can say yes to the lowered amount or no,
Mhm.
go pound sand.
Right. Now, this is not Section 8. I'm just curious if this happened in your area, but in Seattle, and I think just the city of Seattle, not even the state of Washington, they have, I think they passed something that basically said that you can't run a criminal background check anymore when finding a tenant. Have they done that in your area?
I think they did that in Oakland, California.
Hmm.
I believe it hasn't hit my market yet, knock on wood. I may not have heard about it because I don't do any of that. My property manager does all that.
Right.
But yeah, I heard that. I heard that and think it was in Oakland, California, I think.
Yeah, it's just it's I think a lot of times in the name of I guess let's call it wokeness,
Ah,
people don't even know like they don't even know that they're crippling their own people. I mean,
yeah,
I'm imagining there's a small mom and pop landlord who buys a duplex because they want to be financially independent and build something for their future, and they have young children, and they can't run a criminal background check on the guy who's going to be sharing a wall with them and living next door on the other side of the duplex, staring into the backyard where those little girls play. Like I'm
yeah,
just like, oh man, that's got to be rough, but here we are.
yeah. Yeah, the people that are passing these laws don't own rental properties.
Yeah, or run any sort of business.
Yeah,
But awesome. Well, that was all my questions. You were very thorough. I got a lot of value. I hope everyone listening has gotten value too. And thank you. This was great.
yeah. The thing I'll say, kind of in closing about Section 8, is again, I really think it comes down to the person. Do you want to do it or not?
Mhm.
Um, there, a lot of times people reach out to me and they're just excited about the check. I get my check
Mhm.
early. I get my check early. I get guaranteed rent. Guaranteed rent. True, all true. But realize being in the Section 8 program has costs that if you're not really in it, you're going to be annoyed by. Realize that you may have tenant drama that you don't want because you are
Mhm.
servicing lower income individuals. I really think Section 8's a passion. If you're up for it, it's a wonderful program. You get to help some truly amazing people. But if you're doing it just for the check, do something else.
Mhm.
You're going to get annoyed by it, and it will probably only frustrate you.
Got it. Yeah, that's really, really good advice. Well, and to anyone who's watching, if you have not yet subscribed to One Rental at a Time, hit that subscribe button and the notification bell and smash the like for Michael as well, because this dude is putting out gold each and every week. Actually, every day. You post like every day.
I do.
That's a labor of love right there. I make YouTube videos too, and let me tell you, it's rough to post a video a day. It's a lot of work. So thank you for all that you're doing for people.
Well, I'll tell you what, let's give your channel a plug right here. Todd, how can they find you?
Oh, awesome. Thank you. It's just my name, Todd Baldwin. It's pretty easy. And if you guys have any real estate questions or want to know more about house hacking, that's kind of how I got started. And you can DM me on Instagram. It's at Todd J. Baldwin.
And again, folks, you probably know his pretty little face because he's been all over CNBC. He's a known quantity on CNBC. So thank you very much, buddy. Have a wonderful day.
Awesome. You as well.
Thanks.